This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you, Cindy. The first item on the agenda for the Planning and Zoning Commission on Thursday, June 4th, 2020. It is 5:31. We are doing a virtual meeting via the GoToMeeting application. The first item on the agenda is call to order, which I will do at this point. The second would be to ask, would there be anyone willing to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Andy Davis moves the agenda.
We have a motion by Davis. Is there a second?
Scott Fickner seconds.
And we have a second by Fickner. Now I have, at this point, I'll just say, open your microphone if you have any discussion on the agenda. Ken, yours is open.
Yeah, am I just missing it here, or do we, on the agenda, do not have the approval of the minutes from last meeting in March?
I don't see them on there. That's on me, Ken. I did the agenda. Are they in the packet?
Yes, they are.
Would you make a motion to approve the agenda with an amendment? Or Andy, would you amend your motion?
Amend my motion to move the agenda with the addition of approving the minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken, for noticing that. So we have a motion to approve the agenda with an amendment to add approval of the minutes following the approval of the agenda where we're at right now. Would anyone second that motion?
Scott, I'll second it.
Thank you, Scott. We have a motion and a second to this point. Yes, please open your microphones, and thank you, Ken. Hearing nothing, I will call the roll. The Commission Member Noel.
Aye.
Commission Member Urban.
Aye.
Commission Member Rosso.
Aye.
Commission Member Henry.
Aye.
Commission Member Fickner.
Aye.
Commission Member DeVos.
Aye.
Chairman Davis.
Aye.
Motion passes. First of all, I guess I should also say that Kelly Henry has joined us again. Kelly has been reappointed to the Planning Commission, and for some of those that weren't on when we discussed it, Kelly, there was some miscommunication. It was her intent to want to serve another term, but emails or other communication got mixed up, and she didn't have an opportunity to respond. So welcome back, Kelly. And as we said, we will do the oath of office at the next meeting. So the next item would be to approve the minutes. Would there be a motion to that effect?
Rosso, so moved.
We have a motion by Rosso to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second to that motion?
Urban
Davis.
second.
I heard Davis. Second by Davis. We have a motion and a second. Again, I'll just ask, open your mics if you have any comments on the minutes. Hearing none, I will call the roll, and I do it in this order because this is how you show up on my screen. And so this time, though, I will start with Commission Member Urban.
I'm sorry for what you broke up.
To approve the minutes.
I seconded that.
Yeah, but now we're doing the roll call. So,
oh, aye. Sorry.
Thank you. No, sorry, Joe. We're breaking up. Sometimes I'd have to log back in, but you're the tech guy, so what am I telling you? So
Right.
Ken, Commissioner Rosso.
Aye.
Commission Member Henry.
Aye.
Commission Member Fickner.
Aye.
Commission Member DeVos.
Aye.
Chairman Davis.
Aye.
Commission Member Noel.
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. We have no unfinished business. Under new business, I've asked Public Works Director Moulton to be here to add anything other than what I can provide in my report. Craig and Julie Bitter live at 925 West Austin Drive. They have a home and has an attached garage. It was their intent and desire to add an additional stall onto their garage. It could not be accommodated while maintaining the appropriate 7-foot setback. And in this instance, given that the parcel had been accommodating a principal use, the single family home, and it did have an attached garage, which really doesn't come into play, there would be no basis for the granting of a variance in this instance. So to remedy the matter, the bidders approached Public Works Director Moulton, who also oversees the park department, the parks, the physical parks. And they had a discussion on whether there was a way, given that the bidders owned property abutting Ramsey Park, if there could be an exchange of like-sized parcels arranged between the city and the bidders. Mr. Moulton or Public Works Director Moulton approached the Parks Board then, and they gave their consent. And so the bidders felt comfort in spending some dollars to put together some survey documents. I will say it is my understanding that the bidders have assumed every cost of this matter, and the city has borne no cost other than some staff time. As you will see, they have requested approval of a registered land survey, which then would provide the split of that lot. And I'm sorry, I didn't number the pages, but on the actual copy of the RLS, you can see there are two areas on the inset, and I outlined one in red and I outlined one in green. Those are the two parcels created by the RLS, and the city then would relinquish the parcel outlined in red, and the city would receive the parcel outlined in green. It's nearly identical size of parcels. Again, the bidders have assumed all of the cost of this registered land survey, and I understand they've actually reimbursed the city for some of the legal costs the city's incurred with the city attorney Brandt's review. My opinion to be the registered land survey meets all of the obligations of the bidders, and I would suggest that you would provide your approval. Public Works Director Moulton, is there anything you can add to that discussion? Anything I missed?
Nope, well said, Russ.
Thank you, Pete. The bidders haven't joined us. We haven't asked them to. At this point, short of someone making a motion, why don't we go around one time and have some discussion? You can ask myself questions or Public Works Director Moulton. And Ken, we'll start with you. Do you have questions regarding the matter, comments?
Yes, I do. Chairman Davis and commission members, the whole process appears to be logical and makes sense. It's simply an exchange of property to facilitate a citizen. The only question I have, is there a precedent to this? Will this potentially be an issue in the future with other people that may want to do a similar transaction?
I would say the bidder property already was identified as an RLS, and I don't understand. I have no knowledge of what that RLS. I understand it happened years and years and years ago, certainly more than 19 when I was hired. But I don't know if that was a similar swap. I would have Public Works Director Moulton. I don't recall of any similar issue, but Pete may.
Yeah, when the Bakers lived there, Ken, they had asked for a similar situation to swap, and as long as we didn't change the acreage, Jim Brandt, our city attorney, thought that it would be proper to do so. So they have changed the boundaries on that lot before. I don't know exactly where, but I know we did a land swap. I think it was back in the 90s, early 90s.
If I recall correctly, Pete, I believe that was probably to with the attachment on the garage, the non-enclosed portion. I believe was perhaps where that was done. But I'm certainly supportive of it as long as there's not an issue in the future. I think it makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rosso. Commissioner Henry.
I think it's a great way to make community members happy.
Thank you.
It's a nice shade park too, if nobody's been down there. It's a beautiful space.
I believe that's one they call Prickly Park because of the sandburrs.
Yeah, there's that. We're working on it.
We're talking about McGill. You're thinking Ramsey, Russ?
Oh, this is McGill Park. I'm sorry. That should be noted because I didn't refer to Ramsey. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Commission Member Fichtner.
No, I think it's a good idea. It actually backs up onto McGill Park that way. It doesn't hurt anything for as far as the city goes.
Thank you. Commission Member DeVos.
I have no questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Davis.
I have no concerns.
Okay. Commission Member Noel.
I've been a part of a couple of conversations about this because I'm on the Parks Board, and also we've discussed it at a workshop of the City Council, and non-controversial. I think it makes sense. It doesn't harm the park at all, and is certainly good for the residents, and doesn't impinge on the neighbors at all. So I'm in favor of it.
Commission Member Urban?
My question was very similar to Ken's, and he expressed it much better than I did. So my question was answered.
Okay. At this point, I probably have to announce, and I don't think it is a conflict of interest, but I worked at McDonald's with Julie Bitter in 1980, so down in Fairmont. So, would anyone be inclined to make a motion to approve the resolution recommending the City Council's acceptance of RLS 76?
I will so move. This is
Urban
Russell.
will second it.
We have a motion by Rosso, a second by Urban. At this point, instead of going around again, if you have anything to add to discussion regarding the motion, turn on your microphone. Hearing nothing, I will call the roll. Commission Member Henry.
Yay.
Commission Member Fichtner.
Aye.
Commission Member DeVos.
Aye.
Chairman Davis.
Aye.
Commission Member Noel.
Aye.
Commission Member Urban.
Aye.
Commission Member Rosso.
Aye.
Motion passed. This matter will be subject to a public hearing on the 22nd in front of the City Council at their regular meeting. Mailed notice has been provided to those within 350 feet. Notice has been or will be published in the Herald. I think it was today. And notice has been posted at City Hall as well on the social media maintained by the city. So thank you for your work on this, Public Works Director Moulton. The next item on the agenda is consideration of an administrative lot split submitted by Lori and Kurt Zins. The property in question is 507 West Elm Street. That is not the Zins residence. They live in the neighborhood next door or adjoining, as I understand. This is the former Don Duos estate. It had a single family home that was straddling two lots, two just about 50-foot wide lots. The house was in I won't hide it, it was in a deplorable condition. You know, some would say public health nuisance, certainly an eyesore, detracted from the neighborhood. I would suggest that it detracted from the enjoyment and the pleasure of the neighbors and those in the area. At one point, Habitat for Humanity attempted to acquire the property to demolish it, and their intent was to undertake the construction of two single-family homes. For a number of reasons, that did not happen. And Kurt and Lori stepped in, and they have gone through the proper legal channels to obtain ownership of the property. It is their intent, and well, they have demolished the residential structure that was there and have raised and leveled the site. It would be their desire to, rather than split the lots, as I would say, vertically or nearly vertically as in the past, it would be their desire and intent to split the lots horizontally to create what would actually be two lots that would become conforming, as they would have the appropriate minimum width of 55 feet. They would both meet the minimum lot area. It would be an alternative split. One would be stacked upon the other off Elm Street, and the access to the properties for vehicular access would be provided from the platted alley. Now, that is certainly, I said, not a standard split, but there is nothing in our ordinance that would suggest it cannot be accepted. It could not be considered. As it says to the access, and that was the main consideration, except as otherwise provided in this chapter, no lot shall contain any structure unless such lot abuts for a minimum of 20 feet upon at least one public street, or in this case, unless it has an unobstructed and recorded access agreement of at least 20 feet upon the public street. It has a recorded platted alley, which is part of the neighborhood plat. So that's as good as gold. As you're aware, many of you, in the amended plat, there is a process where the neighborhood could undertake the vacation of an alley. without the city's consent, and actually there's a process without the city's knowledge. They don't have to even inform us. It's a court matter, according to according to a court action that was taken in the 1890s, so which is still standing and is the precedent. So it would meet that. In this case, they would behoove the Zins not to accept a vacation of the alley, which they would have to be a party and would have to consent to, or consent to a petition. If they did undertake the vacation, it would be hinged on them to make sure they maintained an easement of at least 20 feet to provide the access. So I would ask at this point, Mr. Zins, you want to turn on your microphone and add to the discussion?
I don't think I can add any more than you've already done.
Thank you, Kurt. Please stay with us. You may have some questions from the commission members as we go around and they participate in the discussion. I will say it is the Zin's intent to construct 2 residential structures on there. As I understand, the intent would be to construct a duplex upon each lot. The lots are big enough to provide the appropriate setbacks. In St. Peter, essentially where you can have a single family home unless it's restricted by private covenant, you can also have a duplex. So it will have the appropriate off-street parking provided, and the Zins have already undertaken and have spent a considerable amount of money to go through the court action to obtain the property and then to approve for the demolition. So not that that should have bearing in your decision to make a land use decision, but I think they should be commended for helping to clean up the neighborhood. And it seems like the neighbors are thrilled, other than perhaps about 20 minutes into the demolition when there was a little dust. So, but thank you, Kurt and Lori, for your efforts. At this point, I will go around and ask again individually if you have questions, comments for myself, Mr. Moulton, or Mr. Zins. I would note that when you are asked to consider the ALS, that it does not show easements, and easements will be needed to be obtained as water and sewer services are provided to the what I'll call the northern lot. So as those final services are designed, when they apply for the appropriate permits, Mr. Moulton and I and legal counsel will make sure that the appropriate easements are provided then, so that those sewer lines and water lines can cross someone else's property. The Zins have consented to that verbally and understand that that will be requested in the future. So Commission Member Fickner, questions for myself, Mr. Moulton, or Mr. Zins?
I took a look at it a couple of days ago and everything. It looks amazingly small, but that always happens when it's an open lot. It's nice to see it being improved like that, and I guess I have no questions.
Thank you. Commission Member DeVos.
Yeah, so overall, I mean, it's a logical split as far as the direction they want to go with it. The only question is, how standard is it to have a lot? I mean, I know they would have the 20-foot easement, but otherwise, how standard is it around town that we have houses or lots that are built into essentially with typically only an alley access?
Pete would have more knowledge of that. He's probably more familiar. He's been around longer. He's on the street more.
Yeah, there's only probably a handful, Brad, that have been set up that way. Most of the time they have frontage that comes out to the right of way or to the boulevard. And so, as Russ had mentioned, this does meet the requirement. So the driveway would come to that 20-foot alley, and that's really the only restriction.
And then the other question I would have is, would they, so would they be able to just demand a driveway? And as I understand it, the city doesn't maintain alleys, correct?
Correct.
So but at this point, the idea would be to build the property with just alley access, but would any potential future buyers be able to demand the 20-foot easement for a driveway versus accepting the alley access?
Only if they tried to vacate it.
Okay.
Yeah, the easements that Russ had talked about would be for the utilities. So the back lot is still going to have to get utilities, and the Zinses are probably planning to bring everything in at one time through the same area. So it's really not a inconvenience to either lot.
Okay, so just more be more from a future perspective, just be a buyer beware that the city isn't going to clear out the alley. It would be their responsibility.
Correct.
Okay, That's all I have. Like I said, it looks like a logical split. I would want to go that way as well if I own the property. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I will add to what Public Works Director Moulton said is each property will be served by its own sewer line, and each property will be served by its own water. It's not like water's going to one and then hooking up to the other one. And that's a requirement of our code. So I will then jump to Chairman Davis. Questions, comments?
No, those are good questions from Brad and Scott. I think I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Commission Member Noel.
You know, I think I just want to clarify my understanding. I think I came into the meeting having read the memo and thinking one thing, and now I'm thinking something else about the access via the alleys. As I read it initially, I thought that the alley on we'll say it's the west side, I thought that it would be accessing through that west alley, and the other property would be accessing through the other alley. That's incorrect?
Well, both driveways would be off the alley, which runs in a north-south essential direction.
Okay.
But I mean, people can drive to their driveway from any of the alleys, but I believe the alleys are going to be orientated off the north and south alley.
Okay.
Well, I
Okay,
know the
thank you.
southern lot will. So
Yeah, okay, thank you. That helps my understanding. I guess I'm curious from Mr. Zins why they wouldn't do a fourplex. Is that not permitted as opposed to two plexes?
Kurt, you want to start, and I can add to that?
Well, mainly due to cost. I mean, a fourplex has more requirements for sprinkler systems, codes, and everything, and we just felt that if we could split the lots the way we were, two duplexes fit on there real nicely, and you know, the garages basically will line up adjacent to the garages from the rental property to the northwest or whatever you want to call it already, or to the west. So it just seemed like a good split. So I mean, cost primarily, you know, I mean, building cost, it's more feasible or more doable with, we hope, with the two duplexes. That's provided we actually do go ahead with two duplexes. You know, we want to be able to put two duplexes on there, but depending on how this all evolves in costs, you know, we may start with one and then add another one later. Or, you know, our intention is to try to do both of them at the same time, but, you know, again, still all comes down to cost.
Thank you very much. That was helpful. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you. Commission Member Urban.
So I live somewhat in that neighborhood, and I actually used to rent a house just on that same street or just a block away. My only question is, in those original, I don't know, neighborhoods like that, a lot of the east-west alleys are, I don't know if they've officially been vacated, but they're really unused. They're overgrown. A lot of people have grass in them. Is that east-west alley still being utilized, or is it one of those alleys that is overgrown now at this point?
Kurt,
well,
the alley
that we're actually going to be using that runs in there is already actually paved and being used by the other property owner, the other rental property, as I said, adjacent to it. So that alley's in good repair. And
right, the north-south one, right?
Yeah, yes, I get confused because they don't lay north, but yeah, if that's what you mean, the one that comes off of Elm Street that runs in there is where we'll use. That's already an improved, I mean, I'd call it an improved alley. It's already asphalted it in, and you know, and we'll tie into that. And of course, that's a 20-foot alley. I mean, I own the property on the other alley on 1008 off of South First Street or South Fifth Street, you know, and that alley is not very well improved. That one actually runs down the hill, and you know,
that
one
will
will,
the east, right?
Right, that one we will not use to access this property. I mean, it's not our intention to anyway. It doesn't mean that they, you know, that people can't use that alley, but it's not our intention to use that alley to access this property.
Okay, that's my only question.
I will note that the alley coming off of Elm Street And again, as I referred to as a north-south direction, that is a 20-foot alley. The one that then would run opposite to that is only a 16-foot platted alley. So he would have the access off the 20-foot platted alley. And then I need to jump to Commission Member Rosso.
Yes, thank you. Echo what Commissioner Fichter mentioned earlier. My compliments, Kurt, on cleaning up that property. That's certainly going to be a significant improvement. I have a little bit of a reservation regarding two things. One is properties that are accessed by alleys, and as Public Works Director Moulton mentioned a moment ago, there are a handful, not a significant number, and I do have a little bit of concern about that if that would become a fairly standard practice. And my second concern is I tend to like space around properties, and potentially, Kurt, you'd be having 4 residences in somewhere around 14,000 square feet, which is fairly concentrated in my opinion. Other than just expressing those potential concerns, I can understand what you're doing, and it's certainly an improvement from what has been there.
Thank you.
So I guess those are comments more than questions.
Okay. And you didn't have any questions?
Not specifically, no.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Commission Member Henry, I believe you're the last.
So far, everybody's asked all the questions I had, but I would echo to Ken, Commissioner Rosso's comments. That size, I guess I would appreciate more green space, and do worry about us living on top of each other in the center of the community. But I like yards. I like gardens. So.
Thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Henry?
That's it.
Okay, I will add that they will meet all of the setbacks. They will meet the maximum lot coverage. So we'll make sure they meet all of the development regulations. Again, since they're bare lots and they're ripe for any number of uses, there wouldn't be any basis to provide a variance or any type of separation from the confines of the ordinance. We've gone around once. At this time, I just say open your microphone if you have something to add, if something that one of the other commissioners said triggered something further in your mind. If not, would anyone be willing to make a motion prepared in your pack? The City Council accept the administrative lot split as petitioned by Kurt and Lori Zins.
Andy Davis so moves.
We have a motion by Chairman Davis. Would anyone second the motion?
This is Fichtner. I'll second it.
We have a second by Fichtner, a motion by Davis, second by Fichtner. Again, I'd just say open your microphone if you have any discussion regarding the motion. Seeing none, I will undertake a roll call and start with Commission Member DeVos.
Aye.
Chairman Davis.
Aye.
Commission Member Noel.
Aye.
Commission Member Urban.
Aye.
Commission Member Rosso.
Aye.
Commission Member Henry.
Aye.
Commission Member Fichtner.
Aye.
Okay, this matter will also be considered by the City Council at a public hearing on the 22nd. Once again, notice has been provided by mail to everybody owning property within 350 feet. Notice has been published or will be published in the St. Peter Herald according to statute, and notice has been published at City Hall and on the various social media platforms maintained by the city. Thank you, Kurt, and please thank your wife, Lori, for me.
Thank you, everyone.
I don't have anything, ladies and gentlemen, for a report, but it's not uncommon that I ask if there are questions. If you do, turn on your mic. Okay, I will note that there are a couple development projects that are developing on the north end that may or may not need your attention. But it's not up for discussion tonight. But even in COVID, things are happening. You know, at first, originally, it was just nice to have the birds back. So it is nice as a professional to see that there is some planned development that's going to occur. and there's going to be some capital expended in commercial ventures in St. Peter. So if you don't have any questions, I would suggest a motion to adjourn would be appropriate.
If I may interrupt just for a moment prior to adjournment, I would just like to express congratulations to Mr. Urban and his wife on graduation of their talented young daughter.
Oh, thank you.
And my guess is all of the Urban kids are talented.
And what can you tell us about the University of Manitoba?
Well, we still don't know. It's up in the air, you know, with the border being closed, and we don't know if we'll be on campus or not yet. So it's a great value, I can tell you that.
And where's it located, Joe?
Winnipeg.
Okay.
So
we have winter there.
Well, you know, I mean, it's like Minnesota North.
There you go. There you go.
You know?
Thank you.
Congratulations, Joe.
I do have a question. So how has everything been going with Lake Washington Marine and like with the neighbors? Has there been any complaints? Has everything been good?
As Andy is aware, we went through a lengthy public hearing. A number of conditions were set. It took absolutely just a while to get the minutes done and get the resolution and the conditions. I reviewed them. City Administrator Prafke, who was participating on the phone call, has a phone. He wasn't on video. We've also reviewed the video, like we will have of tonight's meeting. It took a while to get the conditions, and at this point, legal counsel representing Mr. Dirks and legal counsel representing the city are having a number of discussion on a number of matters on, namely, is a conditional use permit even necessary for the use that he's establishing? And so that's what I can disclose at this point, Joe. My one desire immediately would be to get him out of the right of way, because that's not even, doesn't need to be one of the conditions, though it was. That's a regular city ordinance, and we need to maintain control of our right of way.
Oh no, so things aren't great then.
Well, we've gone through the process. We have conditions. I provided correspondence suggesting that there were a couple noted violations, giving a timeline to establish a perimeter fence, which was one of the conditions, because obviously it just can't go up overnight. And subsequent to that, there's been correspondence provided by legal counsel representing the applicant, questioning whether that they even need a conditional use to undertake the automotive sales. So that's where it's at now. I believe the city attorney has drafted a reply, and we'll wait for that process between the two offices to work itself out, and I'm given further direction.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking, Joe. I know it's important to the neighbors.
Yeah, I asked because I had heard from people questioning about it. So.
Any other questions?
Any idea what's going on with the Amish furniture place? Is that rented?
I've heard rumors, but I haven't heard anything from the owner. So
okay.
I hope that they've checked the zoning ordinance, so it's not an instance where I've got to go shut someone down, and if it's not allowed. And so I've offered that assistance to the owner, have them run things by me, and a couple things have come by me which just never materialized, not because of zoning matters, but other matters.
And how's Hy-Vee coming along?
As far as I know, it's mostly working on the interior and getting things. I haven't poked my head in there, but Hy-Vee may have some future announcements coming up that it wouldn't be mine to disclose.
Thank you.
Can you disclose anything on the north end that you can discuss?
Well, I would say Hy-Vee may have something to discuss on the north end at some point. And also, well, Anytime Fitness has told his membership that he is being necessitated that he relocate because there's pending redevelopment of the old Ford motorcycle. So, but Chad's already made that announcement. Yeah, Chad's made that announcement to his membership, so I'm comfortable discussing it. Any other questions? And that's what I was alluding to earlier when I was trying to be a little more cryptic. But.
Actually, quick question. With the changes for the essentially for the conditional use permit for the auto sales, is that something that's going to either come back to us or come back to the city council?
I would suggest that would be a question more for City Administrator Prafke, since he manages your agenda. But I would suggest likely at some point, yes. At this
Okay,
point,
yeah.
it's being dealt with administratively, but I didn't want to duck Commissioner Urban's question.
Yeah, I was just curious if that might be it just from an administrative perspective. If it's something that with changes coming through, we'd end up having to see it one more time. So
Certainly, if there was any litigation that would develop as to the matter, which, you know, that's what we're attempting to avoid at this point by dealing with it through the administrative channels and legal channels.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion from Davis that was to adjourn. If you can't recognize his voice, is there a second to the motion?
Andy Davis.
Well, I know a lot of people in town could recognize his voice from church services. Is there a second to that?
Tens of thousands.
I'll second it.
And that was Urban. We have a motion by Davis, second by Urban to adjourn. That doesn't require any further discussion. And I will do just a really quick roll call. Commission member, I don't know where I left off. Urban.
Aye.
Commission member Noel.
Aye.
Commission member Fickner.
Aye.
Commission member Rosso.
Aye.
Commission member Henry.
Aye.
Commission member DeVos.
Aye.
Chairman Davis.
Aye.
Thank you all. We are adjourned. Cindy can stop the recording. Ms. Henry.